Okay, everybody, welcome to the Film Gamer podcast finale, finally, of season 3, episode 14. We did it, made it through the first season, which I am arbitrarily um, deciding on, basically, because, we need to start anew. And this is the Film Gamer podcast. Film comes first. So, with that, we're rewarding you with my highlight reel of the best and worst of last night's most prestigious event in the industry, the Oscars. Starting off with Jimmy Kimmel. He usually does okay. His jokes weren't as funny as last year, and like with the example with Robert Downey Jr., he kind of bold highlights and underlines a clever joke and kind of ruins it, goes a bit too far, a bit too unclassy. Not that Robert Downey Jr. needs any defense or it's not worth mentioning or something, because it is a part of the story, but I thought it was just a bit too crass. But anyways, moving on. The presentation style they brought back from 2008, where 5 people introduce the actors individually and talk about them. This time they didn't have any sort of connection directly to the actors they were presenting to. They were just friends, and it worked okay, but the material wasn't as strong. But it was nice to see. In the future, I think that they should do it where they have it for the lead actors, but maybe not supporting. But, they know that people like watching the, actors, and that's what people like seeing. So it was a pretty good ceremony. I mean, with Robert Downey Jr. there winning, I mean, it was proof that basically, if you look at my bingo card, which I can show you at the end, it wasn't anything too amazing, because everything was predicted. We had all the bets laid out. We had all the precursor awards and everything. So there wasn't really anything surprising. The main highlight of the night was how they brought back and wrapped up Barbenheimer, basically. And you truly understand, like, how much Barbie and Oppenheimer really contributed to movies this year, because they both competed for awards and were also the 2 biggest movies of the year. That never happens because, as far as my lifetime goes, the most boring movies win Academy Awards because, they're period pieces or they're about serious subjects and they're not fun. But here are 2 movies which managed to do both. And it had a nice wrap up with Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling with their good banter talking about stunts and Barbenheimer. Of course, we didn't have a best stunts category, which again was super necessary and I would have liked to see. But it was still nice to see them. They had really good chemistry. Ryan Gosling came about and did his I'm Just Ken performance, which was pretty great. I don't like that song that much, but he had, verve and, really brought it. Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger showed up. It was one of the many presenter bits that really worked because they're like, of course, we're here to present, because we both tried to kill Batman. And then they kind of hilariously cut to Michael Keaton, who's sitting in the audience, and that was actually pretty funny. It just goes to show how good presenters are and how some of these actors are here because they really are genuine entertainers. The ceremony, I didn't mind the length, of course. A lot of the bits worked really well. John Cena had a crazy bit where he was naked, and I thought that, people show up and do that, and it's like, oh, he's going to be in his underwear or whatnot, but they actually, like, totally committed to it. The politics of it, I mentioned Jimmy Kimmel earlier, brought up Trump, and that was just kind of ruined my night because I wasn't thinking about it, but the 2 political winners of the night were The Zone of Interest, which is a very good movie, and that was a worthy kind of both sides are terrible speech that I liked. And then immediately that was followed up by Ryan Gosling's performance of I'm Just Ken, which, again, I'm not crazy about the song. I'm not, but this performance was really good and fun and goofy and showed how, good movies can be, because when they focus on the fun stuff, the award show works. When it gets all drained in self-importance, it doesn't, but they had a really good balance, I thought. Ryan Gosling got everybody to their feet, And, of course, they had the backup Kens from the movie, and then you had the surprise of Slash, which was actually really nice and got people really surprised. So, I thought that worked really well. He worked the crowd in the audience. He saw his Barbie castmates and stuff and had them join in and sing. And he even, brought it to the camera and had Emma Stone come in, and that worked really well because, they're co-stars. Ended up working so well that Emma Stone's dress snapped right here. And she's like, oh, Ken got me too excited and whatnot. So, I mean, I would say that was the highlight of the night for sure. Again, they kind of went back during the in memoriam segment. They had Navalny, who was tragically murdered by Putin. But I like the prescience of him saying, if I'm dead, if you're reading this, I'm dead, then, that actually means that we're stronger because they're afraid of us. And then the people who won for the documentary for 20 Days in Mariupol, it seemed like the guy had more political stuff to say, but was trying to be reserved, which I thought was tasteful. So, yeah, that was overall pretty good. The in memoriam segment, as usual, the in memoriam segment, as it has been the last few years, was kind of ruined because there were a lot of important names that they skipped over, particularly at the end, where they just put "and these people" on the line, and including like a two-time. Multiple Oscar winners who just kind of get their text in. You don't cut to the players playing or anything. Just people want to see the names. They want to see who died. It's not meant to be a performance. So that again was ruined. Just focus on the people. Have a bit of piano playing. Don't make it anything fancy. Okay. People always get pissed because it's a very important thing where you're supposed to read the people's names. Like everybody is watching. It's a respect thing. And I think when they try and get too showy about it, it doesn't work. Now, for the rest of the political talk, that was mostly it. And I usually don't like actors or whoever speaking politics, but these weren't actors. They were the filmmakers whose subjects directly correlated to what was going on. I was worried that the Gaza protests would somehow ruin it, but they didn't. And you had a lot of nice nonpartisan stuff, like Christopher Nolan won for directing, which we all know was going to happen, and it won Best Picture, and it won 7 Academy Awards overall. There was a nice changing of the guard moment with Steven Spielberg giving the Oscar to Christopher Nolan as kind of like, you're the premier filmmaker now, although, of course, I hope that Steven Spielberg sticks around and keeps making movies for as long as possible, because he's better at making movies, in my opinion, than Christopher Nolan. But they've never really competed together aside from, Spielberg producing Best Picture, which, we all knew Maestro wasn't going to win anything, but Bradley Cooper took those losses well and went on to Abbott Elementary. Emma Stone winning was kind of the one closest thing to a surprise of the night. This stuff gets locked down so much now that it's not a surprise. So she was kind of like the second, choice ahead of Lily Gladstone. And a lot of people didn't like Lily Gladstone winning because she's only not in a whole lot of the movie. It's DiCaprio's story. And out of all of the female roles that were nominated for Best Actress, it didn't that was the least amount of her story. But I still thought she embodied the character really well. And again, a mix of humor. You can see John Cena here. And that was like a crazy moment, but it had the right amount of build-up. And then you had nice wins, like you had Godzilla -1 winning for visual effects. Of course, they cut off the visual effects people because they always do, even though they worked really hard and translated their speech to English. Didn't have a translator with them. Maybe they couldn't afford it, or I don't know. They were just scraping by, but that was nice. And then you have John Mulaney auditioning here. He hosted the Governor's Awards, and he recounted essentially the plot of Field of Dreams while presenting for Best Sound. And it's a really funny classic Mulaney bit where he just kind of goes on and on with great animation about something that doesn't have to do with anything. In this case, the plot mechanics of Field of Dreams, which he thought should win Best Picture. And then, you have winners like Cord Jefferson, who won for screenplay. A lot of people think that his adaptation of the novel Erasure, which became American Fiction, was kind of watered down too much. I thought it was like clever and funny, and I always pegged him to win, so it wasn't like a surprise to me. And he was like, hey, why make $200 million movies? It's a risk, but we accept it anyway. Why not focus more on making, 20 $20 million movies, or, $10 $20 million movies, or, $55 million movies or whatever. So, I mean, that was like a nice bit. Al Pacino's incredibly chaotic reading of the Best Picture, where he just kind of skips the nominees, but it was like confusing and not as ceremonial, but they had already introduced the Best Picture nominees earlier in the night. I was a bit nervous that inviting Al Pacino because he's a very exciting actor, and at the Game Awards he admitted that he had trouble reading the teleprompter. You can see that on my TikTok page, that clip combined with what he did here. But overall, the winners were pretty good. You can see here they did another bit of spread the love kind of thing, because Oppenheimer did dominate the major categories. You had Best Picture, of course, Best Director, Best... this is not really full screen, is it? There we go. You had Best Picture, Best Director, which you knew was going to win, Best Score. You had a couple of other wins in there that I'll get to. But Anatomy of a Fall got original screenplay. She had a nice speech with her husband. A lot of husband and wife teams at this year's Oscars. It seems like it's here to stay. I mean, you had Margot Robbie and Tom Ackerley, who produced Barbie together. You had Christopher Nolan and Emma Thomas producing Oppenheimer together. You had Marie-Ange Luciani and David Tion, who produced Anatomy of a Fall. Justine Triet was really the writer on that screenplay with Arthur Harari. Anyways, but they won an award. Barbie won for Best Original Song for What Was I Made For. You had Billie Eilish and Phineas winning. I think Billie Eilish is currently the youngest Oscar winner alive. I know Tatum O'Neal, like when she was 8, but my point is the youngest person to have an Oscar currently is Billie Eilish, and Phineas is second. So that's kind of funny that they've won 2. As somebody pointed out, that Jennifer Lawrence, who presented, I think it was in Best Actress, she is the only person born in the 90s to have an Oscar, at least in the acting category, so that was surprising. There's something funny about Killers of the Flower Moon going home empty-handed just because Apple spent $200 million on it, so I thought that was kind of goofy, I guess, that like they spent all of that money for all that acclaim, same as Netflix did, and where did it get them? Nowhere, Props to Martin Scorsese for securing the bag for making that movie. I wasn't crazy about it. Thought it was well edited, but told the wrong story. But, whatever. Maestro, same deal. Netflix spending a lot of money to get nothing, unfortunately for them. But, at least the movie was made. I can't say it was a total waste of time. It was something to think about. But, yeah, American Fiction won Adapted Screenplay. Past Lives, again, won nothing, but it was only up for 2. The nomination is the award. Poor Things won 4 Academy Awards, Best Actress for Emma Stone, and then all the technicals. It won for makeup and production design, and I forget what else, actually, but The Holdovers won Supporting Actress. We all knew that was a lock, so that movie won, and then The Zone of Interest won for International Film, and it won for Best Sound, which was, again, a great win. Cillian Murphy, nice to see. I wanted Paul Giamatti to win, but it was a decent win for Murphy. You can't say it was undeserved, and a lot of winners were previously egregious. Emma Stone really, it seemed like, did not want to win because she likely knew that everyone wanted Gladstone to win, and she was second. But hey, I mean, I pointed out that Emma Stone's two best performances are Easy A and The Favorite, and she won for La La Land and Poor Things. So the Oscars don't get it right. She's a good actress, but wow, she's really overperformed. And she's like kind of scared of her career because she's like, oh, please don't hate me. But yeah, I'll be anxious to see where everybody's career goes from here because the trepidation was that Lily Gladstone, was this her one shot, or is she going to be back? Her next movie is with Reed Moreno, who was a director on The Handmaid's Tale, but also did the rhythm section, which was a terrible movie. So hopefully we'll see if it can be turned around. Sandra Hüller was there. She looked nice, as did the other nominees. And I think we'll see Sandra again. I do. It was funny, Tim Robbins messing up with Robert De Niro, saying that he should win, and whatnot, but he handled and recovered well because he's a professional. He towered over everybody there. I mentioned Blunt and Gosling. That was really good. Um, People overall were generally sporting. The Any other winners or anything that I missed out of the bits that were funny? Not really. That kind of covers it. So, I mean, Jennifer Lame won for film editing. That's who Christopher Nolan went to after Tenet because she edited Marriage Story. Funny enough, she hadn't done a whole lot of movies, but Christopher Nolan tends to be loyal to his crew, and he'll pick somebody and stick with them. For example, after Hans Zimmer couldn't do Tenet, he got Ludwig Göransson, who he's obviously sticking with. And then after Lee Smith had to do 1917, he went to Jennifer Lame. And after Wally Pfister didn't want to had to do his own movie, he did Transcendence, which unfortunately for him bombed, and he couldn't get much work after that. And the fourth, or the one Oscar that I was missing for Oppenheimer, was Hoyt van Hoytema, who said to try shooting on celluloid, which, I'd love to do. It's super expensive. I think he was speaking more to people in the industry, but yeah, we can see about that, see if that takes off. They made a new film stock for that movie in IMAX, which I'm not sure anybody will ever use because it's black and white, but hey, nice speech. And, he took over from Wally Pfister and has stuck with Nolan ever since. So Nolan points for loyalty there. Production design, I mean, a lot of people thought Barbie, but, Poor Things looked cool, and people thought they already had the Barbie sets, so that's it. Again, costumes, Poor Things, sucker for period pieces. I would have loved Jacqueline West to win for Killers of the Flower Moon because I thought they represented that period appropriately, even though it was a boring film. And then sound, Zone of Interest, that entire movie revolves around sound, so that's not surprising. Again, it won makeup because of what it does with Willem Dafoe, which I thought was like not as impressive as people said, but there wasn't really any knockout winners in this category. Again, all the winners for music, all the nominees for music were pretty good. No shock to see Ludwig there; that was deserved. The other ones, American Symphony, John Baptiste, It Never Went Away. That was a pretty decent. I joked when I watched it on Netflix that it did for me what Maestro should have done during the final performance in that movie. So that was pretty good. Godzilla Minus One, 20 Days of Mariupol, all pretty good. The Boy and the Heron, Miyazaki, who had won once before 20 years ago, didn't show up, but that's fine. It moved the thing around, it moved the ceremony around. People were annoyed on Twitter, of course, when are they not, that War is Over, which is inspired by John Lennon and Yoko Ono's writings, and their son, Sean Lennon, showed up, asked everybody to say happy birthday to Yoko, and people were like, imagine winning a short, an Oscar for The War is Over and not mentioning the war, going on around the world. And I just kind of think, like, we had enough of that. Who cares? You don't need to be political. Wes Anderson won, and because he wasn't there, goes to film his next movie in Germany tomorrow. So that moved the ceremony along. Last Repair Shop one, Zone of Interest one. We all knew that was going to happen. So overall, the award ceremony was pretty good, and I thought it was pretty good. Again, a few of Jimmy Kimmel's jokes, just I don't mind if they go too far. He just wasn't super funny. Like I, I honestly think that Robert Downey Jr.'s past is fair game because he cemented the comeback, and we knew he was going to win. But hey, people made a big deal about him not acknowledging Ki Hoi Kwan, which was the same thing Taylor Swift did at the Grammys. And then they also countered with getting a backstage photo with Robert and Ki Hoi. So, nice little moment made up for it, in these ceremonies people can get brought up to. But yeah, I thought it moved along pretty well. The only thing that bothered me was Al Pacino's delivery at the end, which you can see on the internet now and on my page, where he skips the nominees and he's like, "My eyes see Oppenheimer," and then he goes, "Yes," and then people freak out because it's like, "Oh no, is it another mix-up?" And it's just like, no, it's Al Pacino being Al Pacino. Always a talent, always exciting, and yeah, so. It's a bummer that there were no surprises. I'm like, oh, what do I do with my life now? But moving on to the next thing in next year, we'll see you back next year. And again, if you guys have any questions about Oscars, maybe you want to win one and ask me for advice, that'd be fun. But yeah, you can come to me and we'll produce something together. I don't know, or we can watch the Oscars, Academy Award watchers. So yeah, thanks for listening to this podcast, and hopefully as I go on, I'll have a stronger structure, because this was fast and loose, because I wanted to get it done quickly, and I wanted to get it out the door, and I didn't want to hem and haw about it. So thank you for listening to the Film Gamer podcast. We are on YouTube now, and Spotify, and where all the rest of the podcasts are. So yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next season.